Hi, my name is Melissa, and I am an alcoholic and a recovering addict. And I am going to do some more of step two, the questions that are in the recovery workbook, from the Life Recovery Workbook, and the Life Recovery Bible. And I'm going to read a little bit from the big book and the 12 and 12, that kind of supports, the second step, which is came to believe a power greater than yourself could restore us to sanity. And by that, we have to kind of admit that we, in our addiction, were not so sane. So the things we did, the actions we took to, you know, do the things we were doing, basically states that we were not living a manageable, sound mind life. The decisions that we made isn't really decisions we would make if we were sober, basically. Um, so before I do the questions, I have like too many books here. All right. I do want to read um, out of the big book, where it talks about, um, you know, the Bill when he discovers his power, because he relapsed many times, and he just could not stay sober. And so this is on page 10. It's in Bill's story of the four. Says, I had always believed in a power greater than myself. I had often pondered these things. I was not an atheist, for few people really are, for that means blind faith in the strange proposition that this universe originated in a cipher and aimlessly rushes nowhere. That's important. Um, My intellectual heroes, the chemists and the astronomers, even the evolutionists, suggest vast laws and forces at work. Despite contrary indications, I had little doubt that a mighty purpose and rhythm underlay all. How could there be so much of precise and immutable law and no intelligence? I simply had to believe in the spirit of the universe, who knew neither time nor limitation. But that was as far as I had gone. With ministers and the world's religions, I parted right there. When they talked of God personal to me, who was love, superhuman strength, and direction, I became irritated and my mind snapped shut against such a theory. And most of us do. And because we're like, well, if God exists, then why would he let this world go the way it goes? Well, that's free will. And these are the decisions we choose, not him. So, to Christ, I concede the certainty of a great man, not too closely followed by those who claimed him. His moral teaching, most excellent. For myself, I had adopted those parts which seemed convenient and not too difficult. The rest I disregarded. So basically, what he's saying is he will claim the convenient parts of God, right? But the rules and stipulations, he don't need all that, right? So the wars which had been fought, the burnings and uh, chicanery, I think that's how you say that word. I'm not a genius. That religious dispute had facilitated, made me sick. I honestly doubted whether, on balance, the religions of mankind had done any good. Judging from what I had seen in Europe and since, the power of God in human affairs was negligible. The brotherhood of man a grim jest. If there was a devil, he seemed the boss, universal, and he certainly had me. So, but my friend sat before me, and he made the point blank declaration that God had done for him what he could not do for himself. His will had failed. Doctors had pronounced him incurable. Society was about to lock him up. Like myself, he admitted complete defeat. Then he had, in effect, been raised from the dead, suddenly taken from the scrap heap to a level of life better than the best he had ever known. Had this power originated in him? Obviously, it had not. There had been no more power in him in than there was in me in that minute, and there was none at all. That floored me. It began to look as though religious people were right after all. Here was something at work in a human heart which had done the impossible. My ideas about miracles were drastically revised right then. Never mind the musty past, here sat a miracle directly across the kitchen table. He shouted great tidings. I saw that my friend was much more than oops, inwardly reorganized. He was on a different footing. His roots grasped a new soil. So, and I mean, the big book, I think it goes back like, I mean, the first edition was printed in 1939. And if it can do that for them all the way back then and keep printing new editions, they're coming out with the fifth edition this year. And if they can keep printing them and it's still helping and it's still helping, and it talks about God and a higher power, it can work for you too. It did work for me. I was not one to believe in God. I didn't live by that. Okay, so the next thing is all right. And FYI, I believe it's the first 186 pages. Um, is It's like the first 90 pages are about finding a higher power, and the rest of them is that's step one, two, and three, and then the other 30 pages are the rest of the steps. So there's nine steps. So I mean, if you think about it, you know, the big book puts a lot of emphasis on finding finding God, you know, that because when we're out there in addiction, we don't think about it. We don't think about consequences for our actions. We don't think about people we're trampling on, homes we're wrecking, lives we're ruining, bridges we're burning. We're not thinking about that. So, in order to make it right, we need God's guidance to do that. So, okay. Um, I think yesterday I was on, all right, I was on the third question. All right. It says, have I began to drop my insanity of living alone and being trapped in addiction? Am I ready to have Jesus visit me in my caves and cleanse me? If so, write out a prayer to him here. All right. I will type that in the chat, and I will leave that. Um, I will just leave that for you guys to answer. Okay, so I'll try to maybe answer this. have I begun to drop my insanity of living alone and being trapped in my addiction? So I do live alone. Um, and I have never had my own place. But as far as like the insanity, it took a little bit of time, but don't give up. You know, I this will be it'll be 3 years in August for me, and I'm just kind of getting through where I don't dread waking up every day. You know, I'm okay with just living life. It took, insanity depends on how far down you were. Like one of the girls at the meeting says, just depends on how far you let the elevator drop. Is how long it's going to take for you to figure out how to get back up onto the first floor. You know, so um, am I ready to have Jesus visit me in my caves and cleanse me? So the only way I can really think of that would be like maybe baptism, and maybe you're admitting the things that you've done wrong, but that's not until step 4. Um, but if so, write out a prayer to Him here. I don't know if people watching know how to pray, but the way I learned is you have he teaches, in the Bible, it teaches you, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So that broke down and explained is, I, that entire Lord's Prayer, that's before what you pray for. That is you to pray for uh, Him, His will on earth. The they have a second step prayer, and it says direction to do the right thing, so no matter what the consequences may be, help me to consider others and not harm them in any way. Help me to help with others before I take my actions that would cause me to be sorry. Help me to not tolerate love, and help me. Amen. And that 78 to big book. So for every step, there's a prayer, and they're all in the big book. So if you didn't know that, now you know. All right. So faith. All right. How have I tried to control my problems in my own power? Um, so it's kind of different for me to answer these questions because I am past this part in recovery. So I just got to think back a little bit, that I used to handle things. It was irrational, and I would always think out of impulse. So in my own power, I never thought before I spoke. So my dad always would tell me that my mouth would always get me in trouble, and it did for the most part. So that's how I controlled my problems in my own power. Was I didn't think, and I didn't. I just lived on my own will. Okay, and what were the results? All right. The results were I lost my family, my kid, my freedom a couple times. Went to prison. I got to shake hands with some murderers. That was fun. Um, I almost died in a car accident because I chose to be around people that were unsafe. Um, yeah, I mean, that's basically, I say that's it, but some people are like, oh my God, you know, that's just the big ones, you know. I mean, I can't tell you how many times um, I had been blacked out and come out of a blackout and I'd be in a car. I don't even know who these people are. Um, on the, bad side of Indianapolis, and it'd be like 4 o'clock in the morning. I just, yeah, I did really stupid things. Um, all right. Is there any other way that I would like to control and manage it? Okay. Is there any other way I would like to control and manage it? Of course. I mean, I like, you know, in, you know, how it works about being the actor, wanting to, if everybody would just listen to me, the world would be such a better place. If that person would just uh, run the meeting like I want them to, or if this person would just, run the building like I want them to, or if they would do their website like this, or if they would preach like that, this world would be such a better place. Yeah, we all think, not we all, but yeah, we do. We all do. It's the recovery of the mind. All right. But we start out like that. And it's admitting, and that's the insanity that we come from, is that we think that all of our ideas are wonderful and everybody else's ideas are shit. Sorry for saying that, but that's called grandiosity, and that is also, that's a sin. So we got to work on that. And cussing is a sin. I'm definitely working. I'm not perfect. I'm a working progress. Uh, Bear with me. Okay. Um, is there any other way? Oh, I already read that. All right. Am I ready to do my part as this woman courageously did by reaching out for recovery and faith that Jesus' power will be there? Write a statement of readiness to God. Okay. Now, when they're talking, if you didn't see the one from yesterday, this was talking about the woman who had, if you don't know the story, it's the woman who had the blood. She wouldn't stop bleeding, and in those days, if you bled like that, you had a curse on you or whatever, and you were unclean. You were considered an unclean person, and doctors couldn't fix it. Nobody could fix it. So she thought, if I could just touch his garment, I would be healed. So, and that was the case, and it was so. Um, so, like, now that you know that, I'll ask the question again. Am I ready to do my part as this woman did? Oops. Courageously did by reaching. Shoot, I can't type today. Sorry, people. Reaching out for recovery in faith that Jesus's power will be there. All right. So, all right. So do and I think that's a big step. Like, do you, like, if you knew like Jesus was coming into the town, right? And you are like, Do you have that faith that, you know, because he's here, you know, if it's the same thing as your prayers is the same thing as that woman touching his garment, you know? So in my opinion and from my experience, when I wholeheartedly was done and I surrendered and I hit my rock bottom and I gave it up. I said, God, I cannot do this anymore because I do not want to die, you know, because that was my next option. I was going to die. That's all there was to it. I had died. I had a heart attack and I died for 4 minutes. So, you know, I reached out and I did feel that power. And when it says to write a statement of readiness to God, I feel like I just kind of did. Um, so the next question is, how this is restoration, and this wants you to read out of Luke 15:11 to 24. These tabs are nice, but I still can't find anything ever. Luke, okay. So Luke 15:11 to 24. Okay, 15. All right, so this is parable of the lost son. To illustrate the point further, Jesus told them this story. A man had two sons. The younger son told his father, I want my share of your estate now before you die. So his father agreed to divide his wealth between his sons. A few days later, his youngest son packed all of his belongings and moved to a distant land, and therefore he wasted all his money in wild living. About the time his money ran out, a great famine swept over the land, and he began to starve. He persuaded a local farmer to hire him, and the man sent him into his fields to feed the pigs. The young man became so hungry that even the pods he was feeding the pigs looked good to him, but no one gave him anything. When he finally came to his senses, he said to himself, at home, even the hired servants have food enough to spare, and here I am dying of hunger. I will go home to my father and say, Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you, and I am no longer worthy of being called your son. Please take me on as a hired servant. So he returned home to his father, and while he was still a long way off, his father saw him coming. Filled with love and compassion, he ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him. His son said to him, Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you, and I am no longer worthy of being called your son. But his father said to the servants, quick, bring the finest robe in the house and put it on him. Get a ring for his finger and sandals for his feet, and kill the calf we have been fattening. We must celebrate with a feast. For this son of mine was dead and now has returned to life. He was lost, but now he is found. So the party began. So, you know, it it just shows that like your leap of faith and honesty is saying, you know, I I am shedding the old skin. I am turning against the way I used to live, and you know, take me as I am. You know what I mean? So the question was, how have my compulsions and addictions led me to com- compromise, okay, my values convictions and principles. Okay. I spelled principles wrong, but yeah, I did. I totally spelled that wrong. Sorry. All right. So addiction compromised my values and convictions and principles by, I was a stripper from the age of 21 until the age of, I want to say like 26 or 27. Um, there's not a lot of morals and values in that. So, um, and it led me to robbing a bank, and those are the big ones. Okay. So, how have my compulsions and addictions dehumanized me and brought me shame? And I feel like that is also the same. Uh, you know, how have my compulsions and addictions dehumanized me and brought me shame? Yeah. Living the life of a stripper, it'll bring you shame, and it also doesn't do much for the family either. Um, FYI, so, if anybody's in that situation, just remember, if you have kids or, family, they got to deal with watching you go down that rabbit hole. All right. In light of how my addictions and dependencies have degraded me, how am I open to a deeper level of believing that the power and forgiveness of God will restore me to sanity? Light of how many how my addictions and am I now open to a deeper level of believing that the power and forgiveness of God will restore me to the sanity? All right. If you would have known me back in the days where I was, you know, dancing and stuff, and you met me now, you would not even recognize me. I so yes, I believe that once you start living, um, the way of God and following, you know, the you start going to church and you start living right like you're supposed to, and I believe anybody can be restored to sanity. I do. I fully believe that. I believe there's hope for anybody. Um, Coming to believe. How have my experiences shown me that my way of living is not a satisfying or productive way to live? Because that was a dead end for me. At the age of like 50, I'm not going to be able to be a stripper. You know what I mean? So like that definitely ends. You get tired, and your body gets tired, your mind gets tired, and your life starts to. Uh, I I stopped working for money and I started working for alcohol. That was no longer my place of work. It became my place where I plugged in to get what I needed. And those were some really bad last days for me. I I was so sick towards the end of my run with alcohol. And I honestly, I know it sounds crazy, but going to prison for robbing that bank, I desperately think it saved my life as far as alcohol goes, because I was in there so far that after 4 hours, 5 hours not having a drink, my heart was pounding, my hands were shaking, um, and I remember waking up every day like that. And like when your hand falls asleep, I would feel that in my face, that tingle, and it would be in my mouth, in my nose, always just so hot all the time. It was just that DTs from alcohol. It was a really horrible way to live, and I'm just glad that I'm out of it. And it was not a productive way. Maybe at first, because I didn't have the phenomenon of craving when I first started drinking. When I first started working there, my mom passed, and I had a tragic event happen, and then I developed that craving, and it was new, and I just could not get enough, and I had to drink and then the next day I just didn't remember. And I got tired of living like that and trying to put the pieces together and looking through my phone, seeing who I texted and, who I called, how long I was on the phone. Oh my God, what could I have said? A family member I never even talked to, I got tired of living like that. All right. So, how have God's power at work in other people's? Okay. Um, I see many people at City Church, and I see most of the people that I see at the 11:45 service are all people in recovery, I want to say. And I have seen people that have just blossomed. I can't name drop, or I would, but there's uh, many people, many people uh, that have recovered, and I've seen miracles in their life, that I can't say names, so it's hard for me to disclose that. But I've seen people that um, could not live without needles in their arm, and they are now a productive member of society. Um, I've seen women who didn't have a shot getting their kids back have a home now with their kids and a job, and a life. I've seen men that have spent almost their entire life in prison over drugs be successful in life. And they come to meetings, and they do service work, and they they're they talk about, hey, how they hate their life now. You get to hear them speak, um, like there's promises, there's hope, there's things that you can do things sober, and it's not boring, so okay. Okay, there's three more questions, and then we can be done on this one. Okay, what are the signs that I am on the path and in the process of being restored to sanity. Well, for me, the signs that I'm on the path in the process of being restored to sanity is I'm sober. I don't do the same thing over and over expecting different results. As they say, that's what insanity is. And I don't do things over and over expecting different results. If it doesn't work the first time, do something different. So, um, hope and faith. Am I becoming able to believe in, that God help me to live sanely? And if so, how? Okay, so I feel like I don't know, I feel like that's kind of the same question. Um, to live sanely, well, I mean, I'm able to manage my bills. Um, I'm I'm able to go get in my car, go to the grocery store. I'm able to feed myself. I'm able to take care of my cat. I'm able to uh, do these videos to try to, um, carry this message to the addict or alcoholic or somebody in recovery that's still suffering, um, that doesn't have uh, the um, that doesn't have the strength to get out and go to a meeting, that's still not ready, that wants to try to do this alone but shouldn't. Um, I I wanted to have this stuff when I first started or before I started, but this, what I'm doing, is not to drive you to do anything alone at all. This is just because I I want to put more God into recovery, and I'm not allowed to do that in AA. We can only speak of a higher power, and I don't. Uh, a friend, like I said in one of my other videos, kind of said, "Well, isn't that denying your God?" And that set heavy on my heart, and I was like, "Oh yeah, well, I don't want to do that," because. But also, it says faith without works is dead in the Bible, and it says it in the big book. And this is my way of um, doing some form of service work to share my knowledge, about the Bible, about recovery, and trying to share it with you. So, can I now believe that as I reach out for God's strength? I mean, I spelled that right. And surrender to Him, God's nature is to be present and ready to help and support sane choices. I Okay, so can I now believe that as I reach out for God's strength and surrender to Him, God's nature is to be present and ready to help and support sane choices? Why or why not? Okay, so I feel like, all right, so it says to read Hebrews 1 11, 1 through 10. And when I'm done, the verses that it had in here to for these questions, I will put in the chat as soon as I'm done. Hebrews. Why am I just not able to find it? Because it's pretty right here in the back. Oh, yep, I'm right. Okay, so 11. Sorry, guys. Okay, so it's Hebrews 11, 1 through 10. Okay, so it says here for step 2, this is the 12, this is the devotional. It says, we came to believe a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 2 is often referred to as the hope step. In coming to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity, we will remember what it was like to live sanely and have the faith to hope that sanity can return. Faith shows the reality of what we hope for, and it is evidence of things we cannot see. How can we be confident that something we want is going to happen, especially if all of our hopes have been dashed? How can we risk believing that the life we hope for is waiting for us around the bend? The Bible tells us that the key is in the nature of the higher power we look to. We are told that anyone who wants to come to him must believe that God exists and that he rewards those who sincerely seek him. Hebrews 1 or 11, chapter 11, verse 6. Sorry. If we see God as one who is reaching out to help us, we will be more eager to look for him. If our faith has not matured to that point yet, we can ask for help. One man came to Jesus asking him to help his young son who was afflicted by a demon. He said to Jesus, "Have mercy on us and help us if you can." "What do you mean, if I can?" Jesus asked. "Anything is possible if a person believes." The father instantly cried out, "I do believe, but help me overcome my unbelief." And I pray for that every day to help me strengthen my faith and to help me see and to understand the things I'm supposed to see and understand. Then we ask him for our courage and hope to be for a better future. All right, so now 11, 1 through 10. Okay. Great examples of faith. Faith shows the reality of what we hope. I think I was reading. Am I not reading the right thing? Yeah, I am. Sorry. Brain fart. Faith shows the reality of what we hope for. See. Through their faith, the people in days of old. By faith, we understand that the entire universe was formed at God's command, that what we now see did not come that can be. It was by faith that Abel brought a more acceptable offering to God than Cain did. Abel's offering gave evidence that he was a righteous man, and God showed his approval of his gifts. Although Abel is long dead, he still speaks to us by his example of faith. It was by faith that Enoch was taken up to heaven without dying. He did because God took him. Before he was taken up, he was known for a person who pleased God, and it is impossible to please God without faith. Anyone who wants to come to him must believe that God exists and that he rewards him. It was by faith that Noah built a large boat to save his family from the flood. He obeyed God, who warned him about things that had never happened before. By his faith, Noah condemned the rest of the world, and he conceived the righteousness that came by faith. It was by faith, that Abraham obeyed when God called him to leave home and go to another land that God would give him as his inheritance. He went without knowing where he was going, and even when he reached the land God promised him, he lived there by faith, for he was like a foreigner living in tents. And so did Isaac and Jacob, who inherited some promise. Abraham was confidently looking forward to a city with eternal foundation, a city designed and built by God. It was by faith that even Sarah was able to have a child, though she was barren and was too old. She believed that God would keep his promise. So, all right, so there's that, and the questions are done. And it finishes with this. It says, "The delusion of power is a deadly lie to live with. We try to convince ourselves that we have control and that we have the power within us to change. Often those around us fortify the delusion and hide the evidence of our powerlessness from us. Then, in a rare moment of clarity, we come to see that we have made no progress, possess no power, and know of know of no path to follow. The fortunate ones discover that in thousands of remarkable ways, God has been reaching for us and revealing that He can help, that He can heal, that He can restore. Finally, hearing God's truth and believing it leads every struggler from a place of hopelessness to the possibility of a new life." So, all right. So, I will work on. Oh yeah, I will put the in the chat. I will put the verses that were in here. I hope you got something out of this. Have a wonderful rest of your day.